morning, everyone. Good morning. It's morning in this part of the world. If at all we have anybody outside of Nigeria here, I'm so delighted to have you here this morning. And I'm also delighted to be here as well to have this conversation with us. Yeah, please confirm if you can see my screen. Yeah, so I've distilled this conversation or this session into, it's going to give us knowledge and at the same time, well, it's actually developed at the level of skill, but I don't know, because of the time we may not move to that skill part, but I can assure you that it will give you the sufficient knowledge required to understand succession planning. Today, we're going to look at few things, define what succession plan is, because most of the time, when people talk about succession plan, the understanding that I have is that they are talking about replacement planning. We'll look at the difference between replacement planning, between succession planning, between succession management. There are three different concepts actually, but most of the time we talk about succession plan, we talk about succession, but most times people refer to replacement plan and not succession plan. And why it is important, then we'll look at why we need to understand the key component of that succession plan work. Then, of course, also the tools that that you will need if you are here as a talent management professional and also a talent development. The tools that you will need to be able to not just only assess the successors, but also put in place a lot of developmental programs. Because when we talk about succession planning and succession management, it's highly developmental, highly developmental. Then strategies for managing succession planning process, and we'll quickly look at a case study, so that we all contribute to the conversation, the question and answer. Let me start by saying that most of the time, because it's important to look at the world around us, why there is need to have something like this in place. For me, I'm coming from the angle of implementing programs that are actually needed, not nice to have, something that is tailored to your organization. And I'll say that I'm going to make a business case here, for us to see if there's need for us to go back and start having this kind of discussion within the organization, within our organization. And I put it, why should your organization support an idea around succession planning or management program? Because of the complexity of the world that we are in right now, the ever-changing nature of today's workforce that is demanding, involving talent management and talent development professionals, it's very important for us to begin to think around some of these things. And I'll share a few things here. Now, I have this point here. You may add more to it. One, there has been we're contending with a phenomenon, not just only in Nigeria, but in our case in Nigeria, we call it JAPA, or mass emigration, as the case may be, which has really necessitated the reason or the need for organizations to begin to think around succession planning. I mean, I was speaking with someone, one of my bosses when I was working in the bank several years ago. Now a senior manager managing, a branch, who said to me that at a point in time, he had 9 marketers. And 7 of those marketers actually resigned and they left the country. We probably also have noticed why we are experiencing, I mean, there was an article shared recently about why banks, the IT department of banks now, I mean, in fact, some of the things that we are currently experiencing as a result of the challenges in the banking sector beyond the Naira debacle, Naira policy redesign and all that, you know, you will see that a lot of banks, their applications, their IT infrastructure in recent times have really been messing up. That article, I remember it was shared some months ago, that there was a particular bank, about 60 to 70% of their IT team have left the country. And this is just Nigeria. Even globally, in 2021, we started hearing about the Great Resignation, where people were just resigning in droves and all of that. That's a typical example where you need to begin to think around the idea around succession planning. There's of course, we've probably all, we know the idea around the demographic cohort, where we talk about the baby boomers, the Generation X, the Generation Y, the Gen Z, and all of that. As of 2011, I think that was when the people who are termed the baby boomers were meant to start, the early baby boomers were meant to start retiring. People who were born between 1946 to 1964, where they were retiring in droves. And you also can't say that that was global. Even Nigeria, we experienced some of those baby boomers here, even up till recent times. You know, I think the last baby boomers will be out of work in the next, I think, 10 years or thereabout. That's also an idea around the need to start thinking around succession planning. Because when you know that a certain set of people, certain number of people within your organization are nearing retirement, it needs to worry you, or you need to get so worried, you know, because if about 60%, 65%, 70% of the people working in your organization have reached that age of retirement, then one is done for. Then we also talk around the skill gaps in organization. You know that in a lot of organizations now, the issue around skill gaps have become a key conversation, where people are saying now that where organizations are saying now that they don't have people with the requisite skills. I remember some years ago, we were trying to fill a role for a client in Port Harcourt. We learned that there are just about 4 people in Nigeria who have that particular certification. I mean, it's in the oil and gas. Just 4 people. Learned that one is in Mozambique, one is in Malaysia, and I think 2 others are working in. One is working in Shell, and the other one was working in Mobil. So that's how you need to begin to think that if you find yourself in a very tight corner, what should you put in place in order to mitigate that situation? I talked about the rapid and radical and discontinuous change that we are in right now, where we don't even know where the world is going. The need to attract and retain talent, because when you find out that your organization, you really can't attract, you are not attracting and you are not retaining talent, you need to begin to think around what do you need to put in place. Then ultimately, one of the challenges also is the leadership responsibility, where people are being introduced, people are being trusted with responsibility to lead at a very early stage of their career, not like spending 10 years anymore, even 5 years now. One of my mentees was telling me some days ago that she went away And I was asking her, so what happened? She said she was trusted with a new leadership responsibility from nowhere, that our boss resigned, moved to Canada, then the deputy resigned, moved to Canada. So this is more like a, supervisor, like 3, 4 levels away, was asked to lead that function. Now, for me, I always want to, before you start anything, any program, you first of all need to think around the benefits to the organization. And of course, from that previous slide that I made, you can begin to think around it. There are several benefits. It can help you identify and prepare future leaders because, like I said, it's not just only about identifying the leaders. We'll talk about it. It's not just to identify the leaders, but you must prepare these leaders for future responsibilities, ensure business continuity. We've seen several organizations where all of a sudden the CEO or the senior executive resigned, and that was almost the end of that business, because you find out that in a lot of organizations, there are roles that are mission critical to the business. Imagine, just begin to think around it. In your organization, if certain person leaves today, or any unforeseen circumstances, so, happen in your organization today, do you have someone that is prepared, not just someone that can replace, someone that is prepared who can assume that position? So for business continuity, it will help you create opportunities for advancement, retention of current employees, ensure retention of institutional knowledge, what we call knowledge management, such that when people are leaving your organization, they are not taking that knowledge away. That's what succession planning and management helps you to do. Also, to be able to fill future vacancies created either through retirement or whatever. We said that COVID also created a lot of, it's a business changer. Some capabilities or some competencies that we never thought about just became instant skills that people need to build almost immediately. It helps you to increase employee engagement. So let's look at, I want us to be able to differentiate among succession planning, succession management, replacement planning, as it were. I put here, fine, we're talking about succession planning, but most of the time, what we do, or what we've seen that a lot of organizations do, is actually replacement plan as against succession plan. Succession planning is replacement planning is defined here as the process of identifying potential candidates for key positions in an organization to ensure a smooth transition when a vacancy arises. You can see you can see also what a succession planning is. A strategic process of identifying and developing. So while replacement planning is just about identifying potential candidates, succession planning is about identifying and developing potential candidates. Not just only that you identify, but you put these people through a developmental program over a period of time. Then succession management is more comprehensive. In fact, it's a combination of replacement planning, succession planning, and managing that process over a period of time. Not just over some, but it becomes part of the culture of the organization. Now, I put here that just for us to understand, replacement planning is just to identify successors. So take, for example, someone leaves your organization today, and the next thing you are thinking of is that, oh, okay, let Ademola, let him occupy that position. That's a replacement plan. or if so person leaves this organization today, who are the people that we can appoint to lead, the business or the organization? That's replacement plan. But when you are now very intentional to say that not just only that you are identifying successors, but you are also developing them over a period of time using different developmental programs and intervention, then you are doing succession planning, where you've identified successors, you've put in developmental programs for these successors, and not just only that, you've cascaded this across different levels of the organization, not just only at the management level, because the idea of succession planning actually it was conceived initially for CEOs. Usually when CEOs leave, do you have someone who can replace them? Usually at that level. But now succession management has now covered, you can implement it across the organization, in different functions, beyond just at the management level, just for us to, really understand the idea. So replacement planning is basic, while succession management is very comprehensive. You identify the successors, you develop the successors, not just only that, you extend it across the organizations, across all the functions, while succession planning is just for identification and development. Now, of course, it's still the same thing, just for us: replacement, succession management, identification of successors, yes. Development of successors, just a little or none, where you see someone leaving an organization, they'll say, oh, okay, when you leave, you can just hand over to this person, where you just train this person basic skill, basic knowledge about what you have been doing. That's what replacement planning is all about. A lot of organizations also do that, but our interest today is on succession planning, and we're going to talk a lot around it. Now, before you can implement a succession planning program, there are actually 4 main critical components that you have to put in place, that you have to think around before you can do that. One, the role. Then the next is the incumbent, the person occupying that function. Then the next are the successors, the people that you are looking at within your organization to say that, oh, okay, if so person should leave, who are the likely successors? Remember we said that for business continuity, because you don't want some roles are difficult to fill. I mean, I don't know if there's anyone who has experienced a situation where you are unable to fill a role after 2-3 months. And just imagine if that role is a mission critical role. When they say a mission critical role, a role that is very strategic to the operation and the objectives of the organization. Let me pause. Is there someone who has experienced that in the past, where you were trying to fill a role, and in about 2-3 months, I have someone like that in the last 3 months now, there's a friend who has been trying to fill a very strategic role. She has used LinkedIn, she has used all the tools that she wanted to use, and now she's still unable to fill that role. The role is in the oil and gas industry. Let me just, if you have experienced such, let me you can put your comments in the section, in the comment in the chat box, please. If you are battling filling some certain role in the last, over a period of time, let's know so that we can, we can relate with, what you're experiencing. I've been trying to fill a senior role for, wow, 2 years. Awesome. You can just imagine, someone trying to fill it. I mean, I've also experienced where a CEO told me that for the past 9 months, they were trying to fill a very strategic role. So you can imagine if it takes your organization, you can imagine if it takes your organization that long before you can fill a very strategic role. So that's why a succession plan or succession planning becomes an imperative for you in that organization. Then the organization, because we'll find a way to link succession planning to talent management. Because the truth is that succession planning is actually a talent management initiative. Yes, it's a talent management initiative, So we'll talk about that. So before you can begin to think around having a succession planning program in place, you need to begin to think around these 4 things: your organization, the role, the incumbents, the talents that you have in place, then the successor pools. Now, let's begin to think around our organization. Like I said, any initiative that you have in place that is not directly linked to your strategy, please stop it. Please stop it. Any program that you have in place, most especially within, any program that is not directly linked to the objectives of your organization, to the strategy of your organization, it is not worth having, because we typically say that the essence of an organization is performance. Whether you are a non-profit, whether you are a church, whether you are a for-profit or whatever, it's about performance. And performance are distilled from your objectives. Now, when you want to start a program like succession planning, you need to ask yourself certain questions. And these are some of the questions that I've put here. It may be more than that. Where are we going? Why do we need to have this program in place? In fact, by the time you have a program, by the time you have your corporate strategy or objectives, don't let me use terms that people know, but they may find a bit difficult to relate with in the organization. Now you have your corporate objectives. The first question to ask is, do you have the talent in place that can actually help you to achieve these objectives? Do you have, we can also say talent to be, do you have the knowledge, the skills, the experiences, or the competencies in place? Take, for example, this year, in your organization, you've said that you want to make 50 million, just an hypothetical objective. You want to start about 10 new branches. One of the key questions you should ask is to go to your talent plan or workforce plan, as the case may be, to say that do we have the number of people in place that can actually help us to achieve this objective, this 50 million that we have set? If you've never done 50 million before as an organization, then you need to ask yourself, where is it coming from? I say that people before strategy. You need to think about your people first before strategy, because people actually make the strategy. So if you set the goal to say you want to make 50 million, 100 million, 1 billion, ask yourself a very simple question. Do you have that capabilities that can help you to achieve these objectives? You want to grow 20 new branches or 30 new branches in a year. Ask yourself, do you have the capabilities? I mean, I was talking to someone recently who said that as part of their corporate objectives for this year is to dominate the a bit funny anyway, is to dominate the business space in Nigeria. And I said, what's your level of domination now? She said they are just starting. And I said, okay, in the next 1 year, what do you want to do? That they want to be in about 20 states, in about 20 states of the federation. I said, well, I don't know what being in 20 states typically means, but have you looked at the talent that you need to help you cover just one state? Because if you're able to understand just one talent, the talent needs that will help you to cover one state, you can then replicate it across the country. So most of the time, organizations only set corporate objectives without asking the questions, very simple questions, very, very simple questions. And that's where our workforce planning comes in, or talent planning comes in. When you set the goals, the objectives, ask yourself, do you have the needed skills, competencies, even the head count to help you achieve this? If you don't have that, if you can't answer, then you need to begin to think around a program like this. And that's one thing that we need to start the conversation from. Then the number two is the incubant, or the talent, the people that you have in place. Before you begin to think around the role, let's talk about the role. Once you have sorted the issue around the organization, you've asked a lot of questions, you are able to provide answers, and you know that, hey, we are not where we are. People are moving, people are leaving our organization in droves. JAPA has really affected us because of the changing situation. We may not be able to fill certain roles, like someone who said in the last 2 years, they don't have something, they are not able to fill. So when you ask those questions, and when you look at what you need to do as an organization in the next 1, 2 to 3 years, if you're not comfortable where you are, this becomes very imperative, where you need to begin to ask, where you need to begin to think around having a succession planning in place. Now, one critical work that you must be able to do is to be able to identify what we call the mission critical role. Mission critical role, the role, let's put it that way. I mean, I will define what a mission critical role now. Now, you have your organizational chart like this. I mean, yours may be a matrix, yours may be a divisional organizational structure, or whatever you are. Now, you ask yourself, what are those roles that are very critical to the success of the organization? That if someone occupies this position, leaves today, we are done for. I mean, I gave an example of that organization who took them about 9 months to fill. I'm talking about even about 8 years ago. It took them about 9 months to fill that particular role. What happened? The person who was heading that function relocated. He relocated to the US. In fact, they were looking for someone who could fit that role. For a period of 9 months, they couldn't get. As the CEOs told me, even said that they hired a consultant to help them to help them head on for that, they could not get until after about 9 months. You can imagine what probably happened in such an organization. In fact, when you have your goals, or when you have your strategic plan at the beginning of the year, I can tell you that if sales increasing, if part of what they wanted to do for that year was to increase revenue, I can tell you that was dead on arrival. because the head of sales is responsible for a higher percentage of that. I mean, increasing revenue. So you can imagine if in your organization you have certain roles that are mission, not all roles are mission critical. I remember when we did this for an organization, I won't mention the name. We thought that a role like magazine manager was not relevant until someone came to say that without magazine manager, we are nowhere to be found. We are dead. So you must be able to define how critical roles are in your organization, not just to have an organizational structure. If your CEO leaves today, do you have someone who can, that you have prepared, not someone who can just replace, someone that you have groomed over a period of time? And I put some of these criteria for defining mission critical role here. Company structure. How key is that position to the structure of your organization, to the even to the strategy of your organization? Key task. There are some functions that they perform very critical tasks. That will help that if such role should stop. In fact, the operation of the organization has stopped. There are some tasks today that in some manufacturing, in some organization, I'm just using manufacturing, when you have operations manager or someone responsible for operations, if it's not available today, if that function is not there, I can tell you that it will stop the critical operations of that organization. Then specialized leadership. Some roles actually require some special competencies, unique expertise for them to get. Take, for example, someone who probably liaises with the regulators. Let's take, for example, the banking sector, the chief risk officer. Without chief risk officer, you can't start a bank. You can't even, it's very critical to that kind of organization. Then the geographic area of your business. Some roles are probably restricted to certain geography. I remember now that if you are looking for certain roles, to perform certain functions within the oil and gas space, you may have to go to the south region. If you are looking for some roles to perform certain functions, I remember one conversation I was having with someone who said they were trying to do a project in the north, and they were, as part of the talent needs for that project, they needed to bring in some I can't remember the particular function now. They had to go to Port Harcourt to hire, because in the north you can really find such. So those are some of the things you need to think around when you are defining your mission critical role for succession. Now, the next conversation that you need to have when you are trying to implement your succession planning program is the incubant. And one thing that you must be able to do is to do what we call talent review. Talent review is very simple. It's just a process of assessing your current talent based on two things: how they've performed, and also their potential in terms of the skills, the competencies, also looking at their retention risk. And maybe now, most organizations, we also don't look at the retention risk, but the truth is that it is part of the conversation that we must, as talent management and talent development professionals, we must understand the conversation around how to look for, how to map people around the talent retention risk. Someone who probably may leave in the next 12 months, someone who probably may leave in the next 2 years, someone who probably is here to stay. That this person is probably really not going anywhere. And that's one thing that you must do when you are doing talent review. Remember, I said that the difference between replacement and succession planning and management is that succession planning is heavily dependent on development. And now, before you begin to develop people, you must assess them. And that's what talent review helps you to do. Now, talent review could be sponsored by anybody. Usually, maybe by the CEO. It's usually done by the CEO or the senior management. Or it may be that there's a committee. There's a committee. Sorry, let me check. Someone said, okay, let's move on. Maybe there's a committee in place that is saddled with the responsibility of initiating the succession planning programs. It may even be that talent review is done by the managers. You may assemble managers in a room and ask them to review talent across their function, to say that, okay, give them an index card to say, okay, name 3 people who may likely be a successor. Remember, we are not talking about replacement, even though I understand that a lot of managers don't like to do this. You are not replacing them. You are just telling them that you want to build a pipeline of talent, a pipeline of leaders. I usually, let me see if I can use an illustration that I typically use here. I usually use this. Yes. For some of us who were probably conversant with the super egos in the past, what killed super egos, the old super egos, why we don't have the likes of Okocha, the likes of Kanu, the likes of Amokachi and all of that, is because of what? It's because the handlers of that team then, they didn't think of what we call the bench strength, the leadership bench strength. And what does that mean? It means that if this person leaves, do we have enough people who can take the places of these people? Do you have leaders in your organization without going outside of the organization to hire? And that's what leadership bench strength is all about. I define leadership bench strength as, it's a popular term that you will hear when you are doing succession planning, that do you have prepared, skilled, and ready to step in leaders into key positions? That's what it means. It's not that, because most of the time when this conversation starts, managers are jittery. Of course, you have to explain to them, you have to do a lot of pre-succession planning conversation to let them know that, no, you are not trying to, just a few seconds. You have to let them know that you are not trying to, you are not replacing them. You are just saying that you want to have enough successors who can assume that position if there's any eventuality or something. Like I said, talent review is a key process that we must know how to do, even if we are not the one directly doing it, but we must support the senior management team whenever they are doing it. Like I said, it's a process through which leaders assess their talent based on both 2 things, performance and potential. In fact, you can't do succession planning without considering those two things, performance and potential, because the person must be performing now before you can think around making that person a successor. Then, does this person have the potential? I define some of those things somewhere. Yes, performance is the ability to consistently, not just one-off, mark that word, to consistently deliver results over time. And the focus for performance is that it's on a sustained basis. Maybe you look at the last 2 to 3 years, this person has been scoring A. Then that person should be spotted. That means it's an A player. It's not just someone that you just want. I mean, because most of the time we don't look at some of these things in critically. When someone has scored A in the last 3 appraisal cycle, then you begin to spot that person out. And if you don't do that, definitely that person after 1 to 2, if you don't put some sort of retention plan in place for that person, and you've identified this person as a high potential, that person may leave your organization. Once you have seen someone in the last 3 appraisal cycle, he has been an A player, then begin to spot that person out. Then the next is the potential, which I've defined here, that someone's ability to do more, whether that person can be moved to a more senior role or transfer their skills to different roles. Now, performance is not difficult for us because most of the time we have how we calibrate people's performance, not meeting performance, meeting performance, and exceeding performance. And I said that someone that you consider for a succession program like this is that someone who is consistently delivering results over time, someone who is on a sustained basis over a period of time between 2 to 3 years. And performance is, you define performance that is comprised of the what and the how. What the result this person is delivering and how he is delivering it, because you must understand those two things, the what and the how. How the result this person is delivering, we've said, you can go and look at your KPIs. What in the KPIs, the what are the output, the outcomes of the result, and how is he going about achieving that result? Now, for us to evaluate performance, I put it here that you need to ask a lot of questions, because one thing I've seen is that most of the time we apply our performance management. I mean, this training is not about performance management. Our performance management is very is not properly done. It is very, how do I put it now? It's very unfair. Yes, it's very unfair. In fact, in most organizations, a lot of people, it's one of the most controversial initiatives in HR, where people claim that they've achieved a certain goal, whereas the organization or their managers will say no, you are scored a C, and the person will assume it's an A. But in this case now, you must be able to ascertain that this person's performance is something that is not debatable. And that's the essence of some of the questions that I've put here. Are they delivering to the requirement of their role? What significant achievement have they delivered? Something that nobody will contest. Are these truly beyond what is expected? Because most of the time, managers are not skilled at they are not skilled at managing people's performance. Where you see the organization scoring C in terms of their objectives, and you see a lot of people with A's. It has happened. We see that a lot. But for you to have something that is not contestable, that you can defend anywhere, everywhere, you must be able to ask certain questions. And it's data-driven. This thing is data-driven. Now, once you are able to establish the performance, using this criteria that I've said, okay, this person is not, someone who is not meeting performance. I don't think that person should be considered as a high performer. Meeting performance, it depends on how you define in your organization, then exceeding performance. Now, let's define potential. There are three elements that there are three factors that you need to use to define someone's potential. 1, aspiration. 2, attitude. And 3, the ability, the competencies, the skills, the capabilities. Now, aspiration. Aspiration is defined as the extent to which someone is motivated to consistently perform to the best of their abilities and has the desire to this person is well motivated. He wants to go out, he wants to achieve performance despite his challenges. I mean, we know those people in our organization. They are well motivated, even though they are not there yet, but I mean, you are not the one that will even tell them to do. They want to do some things even without being told. Then the next is the attitude. You want to ensure that this person's behaviors, attitudes are in alignment with the values of the organization. And what are values? You have your defined values, the core values of your organization. So you know that this person is values are in line with your own organizational values. Take, for example, integrity. This person has demonstrated integrity over and over. I mean, I don't know what the values of your organizations are. You define that. So you can actually score this person against what we call value score. In the course of this, I'm going to show you a simple way you can begin to do this. There's an Excel sheet that I've created, that I've used in the past, that I will show you how you need to begin to. It's data driven. And I'm going to say here that as talent management and talent development professionals that we have, we need to get our hands on data and analytics. Either you are doing your training, either you are doing your leadership development programs, either you are implementing an engagement programs. Please and please and please, if you cannot defend what you are doing with data, you will not get a seat at the strategy table, because data helps you to make a case. Yes, data helps you to make a case for whatever you are doing. On our group yesterday, we're talking about someone who was probably trying to sell a training program for drivers to the management. And management is asking, is there a law backing that organization must train drivers? No, there's no law like that. But what this person has failed to do is that is unable to make a business case for that initiative. Everything that you are doing, everything that we are doing in your talent management work, talent development work, learning and development work, performance management work, everything, you must make a case for it. And one area that you need to be able to make a case for that is to be able to know how to do ROI, return on investment of any initiative, because that's actually what management wants to see. That if I invest in your training for drivers, what will it amount to for me? Every man is an economic man. Every business owner is an economic man, is rational. Your succession planning program, you must make a case for it. Your engagement program, you must make it. Your retention program, your recruitment, everything, you must create an ROI for it. Anyway, so the third factor that you must do is the ability. It's very simple, just the skills. Across certain set of competencies defined by your organization, you have certain skills. I don't know if you have skills, what we call competency framework. In fact, you really can do a succession plan when you don't have the basis for identifying successors. And I've said two things: performance and potential. And I've defined potential based on these three factors. Now, let's go back to talent review. Now, when you are doing your talent review, these are some of the conversations that you probably want to have. It's a session where you bring in all people together. You bring the CEO is there, the head of talent is there, the head of HR is there, managers are there. They are looking at talent across their functions. I said you would probably, it's a very simple way to do it. Now there are applications anyway, but a manual way to do it is to bring all these people together and give the managers an index card to say that, okay, nominate 3 people who can take your place against certain criteria, usually the performance and the potential. Of course, you want to look at some certain, certain assessment as well. Their experience. Okay, I'm nominating Abimbola. Abimbola is here. Abimbola is my friend. Because Abimbola has been in the organization for the last 10 years. You don't want to nominate someone with just 3 years experience as your successor. When you have such a case, then your business, if it's a mission critical role, then your business is at risk. Let me look at comment. Emphasis on ROI admin. Please organize a session for us on how to calculate training ROI. Okay, that's fine. That's not a problem. Performance evaluation can, to an extent, be objective using source document to back up. Yeah, that's true. Okay, that's fine. Now, where are we? I've put some of these things there. Now, let's go to look at, okay, potential. Yes, we've defined potential. That's aspiration, attitude, and ability. Then you can also group people into potential. 3, well-placed, growth, and high. Well-placed, someone in a well-placed potential simply means individual who is generally well-placed at their current role or level, and while they will continue to develop, are likely to only progress further within an area. So this person is just doing is well-placed within his function. Is well-placed within his function. Then someone that you have put at that growth level or growth box is an individual who has demonstrated that they may be able to take on more broader responsibilities. So you not just only this person can only function in finance. This person can also function in finance, in supply chain, and maybe in sales. That's why you see some people, even though they are not manager, but you can move them from one function to another. It can function in sales, it can function in supply chain, it can also function in finance, maybe because of their background, where they are coming from. Then the high potential, which we call IPO, are employees that have the ability, they are individuals that are capable of taking on a role significantly different from what they do now. They can take on new challenges across multiple functions or progress to more senior roles. This person, not only that can function across multifunctional, but can also assume, that's why you see that maybe when a certain manager or a certain director is on leave, they will ask this person to come and maybe interim director. He does that for some weeks or some months. When this person comes back, he goes back. That person is an high potential. See, there are some roles that you can't just put anybody. And you don't want to go to say you want to start recruiting outside. Some roles are so sensitive that I don't know if you've experienced or if we experience such in our organization. Some roles are so sensitive that every day HR is praying, please, this person should not just fall sick. This person should not say he's retiring. And these are people, when they tell you that they are leaving, even though it's not a good strategy, the organization is willing to give them everything just to retain them. If they hear that this person will leave, the CEO will become very jittery because he knows that this role, this person is very key to, is critical to the goals and objectives of the organization. Now, we've defined performance, we've defined potential. It's not difficult for us to know performance and potential. Now, the next conversation we have is if you want to use, even though I'm not really I'm not really an adherent, I'm not really a subscriber of some certain tools. But if you are familiar with this tool that is called 9-box succession planning grid, it was something initiated by General Electric several years ago. The former CEO, the late former CEO of GE, Jack Welch, was using this a lot for the organization succession plan. All they need to do is just to put people here. They give this to managers. Okay, put your people where you think they are. If God forbid, if you are here at talent risk, the person is a goner. In fact, you are almost as good as gone when you are put here as a talent risk. I have a template here that I will also show where managers, you can see this place is green, this place is yellow, and this place is red. Potential against performance, which I've just defined. The people here are high they have the high potential. The people here are medium potential. The people here are low potential. If you now marry the two together with their performance, this person is low on potential. And what does that mean? This person is not well placed. And this person means is not meeting targets, it's not meeting goal. The person is as good as gone in your organization. It's as good as gone. That's what it means. Talent, it's a talent risk. You don't want to spend your money on such a person. So you can see, some of the things that you need to begin to think. Someone who is high on potential, who is also high on potential. Sorry, someone who is high on potential and high on performance. You need to stretch that person. Delegate responsibility. I just said it, that this is where this person will be made to become the acting. When you begin to see them assuming the acting CEO, acting VP of sales, acting, then that person is a consistent star. Is a future leader of the company who has mastered current role and is ready for a new challenge. We may include promotion, retention. We may include promotion. Retention for that person is critical, because if you don't find a way to if you have a lot of those people in place and you don't know how to if you don't know if you have a challenge retaining such people, they may leave your organization. Then of course you can map people. This is what we call talent mapping. Now let me quickly bring up an Excel tool that you can probably use to create this, because it's a skill area that you need to build. It's not just knowledge area. 1 minute, I'm going to share that tool now. 1 minute. Yeah. So I've defined mission critical positions here. You need to define your mission critical roles. To say in this organization, if CEO leaves, then they are done for. And I've helped to define what those mission critical roles are by the company structure, by the key tasks they perform, by the special expertise needed for their role, by the geographic region, because your organization may not just only be in one place. You may be outside of Nigeria, you may be in the north or whatever. You need to think around that. So they define the CEO, COO, CFO, controller, VP of operation, VP of sales, VP of technology. If those people should leave, there will be a problem. So those are mission critical roles to the strategic objectives of the organization. Then in this, you can then bring the names. I mean, I'm not sure I have it. It's in another example. You can then bring the names, the CEO, who put the name of the CEO and the likely successors, the name of the CFO and the likely successors. So you can see this. You know, if you don't have, then that means you need to begin to think around that. Then the next thing is these competencies that you have in place. For organizations where you have competencies, you can map the competencies to say that, okay, this is a leadership competency for this organization. The definition for that competency is the behavior 1, behavior 2, behavior 3, behavior 4, behavior 5. You know, you can map the competencies for that position. The next is candidate details, where you can map the candidate to say title. You can start even with their name. Are they doing the title, CFO, email, phone, location, supervisor, capabilities required. There's a way you can do the capabilities required for that role. Performance evaluation. So you will include my performance evaluation here, maybe over a period of 2 to 3 years. Performance evaluation, if you have some set of other assessment. One thing about succession management is assessment driven. You may want to use any assessment that you have, but for me, I will always use the assessments that are developed in-house, or that we can say that is very fair. It's very fair. Like the value score. You know, you can create a weight for your values, the values of your organization, like the value score, because you want to also ensure that the person that you are bringing in has the attitude. You know, remember we talked about attitude. Performance over time, you can get the performance data, the retention risk, you know, the retention risk, the replacement risk. You can get all these data. Engagement score, 360 degrees. You can do 360 degrees assessment. If you use MBTI, you know, whatever you use, you can lay those assessments here. Performance information or whatever that you have. Then, you know, that gives you an idea, you know, succession category. You can, is this candidate an IPO? You can go back to that. So that gives you an assessment, because at the end of the day, you are going to do the weighting. So you are not just saying that we're you know, because most times or sometimes there's tendency of biases in this. So you want to do the assessment to ensure that, you know, it's very it's very objective. Then high potential pool, the people you have in your high potential pool, you know, so that I can quickly talk about the development angle to this, most especially for us that are talent development. So having identified these people, the next thing that you need to do is to put in place interventions. For someone here, you need to put in place interventions for them. And that is where development programs come in. We are used to this, or I don't need to explain our 70-20-10 developmental model that we typically use in L&D, that says that 70% of learning comes by doing, experiential. Then 20% of learning comes by exposure, learning from others, you know, and 10% of development comes by training. Most of the time we think that, oh, by sending them for training and all that, that's where they, you know, they pick up all the notes. The best way to develop people comes through experience, by doing. I put some of the things here. Job enrichment, by adding more, expanding their existing responsibilities. Yes, secondment, send them to maybe another department where they need, I mean, learning takes place there. Exploratory assignment, role changes, stepping into caretaker role or a project during leave period. Yes, I've said that. Taking on new or different projects, managing business outcomes end to end, then mentoring others. You know, these are some of the programs, developmental programs that you probably can put in place. Then the next is the exposure to others, 20%. Being mentored by someone outside the immediate area, where you take someone from maybe finance to go and learn in operations, because you want this person to assume maybe a general manager role later. Observation, attending cross-functional meetings, networking events, and knowledge sessions with other team members. You know, the only time you use 10% is through education, where people learn formally, like this now. We are just learning this. This is 10%. And it has a reason why it's 10%. These are some of the interventions that you can put in place. Courses, e-learning, blended learning, certificates. You may say this person should get the certification or certificate, professional accreditation. You may ask this person to go for an MBA or college or something. MOOCs and its like, see MOOCs and SPOCs and all that. Reading books. You may put up books for them, articles, white papers, you know, and all of that. I think basically that's all. Like I said, it's a lot more than this, but let me just stop because of our time. Then we can ask questions. We can ask questions study before, but maybe if we are able to manage the time, we can quickly come back to that. So questions.